France has always had a complicated relationship with powerful women. On one hand, it produced Joan of Arc, a teenage girl who led armies. On the other, it was one of the last Western nations to grant women the right to vote. Only in 1944. The women on this list didn't wait for permission. They seized power, shaped nations, and changed history, often paying a devastating price for it. Let's begin. Number 12. Blanche of Castile, 1188 to 1252. We begin in the 13th century, with a woman who ruled France not once but twice. Blanche of Castile was the mother of King Louis IX, but she was far more than a mother. When her husband King Louis VIII died in 1226, she became regent of France with a kingdom on the brink of civil war. Surrounded by rebellious nobles who believed a woman had no place on the throne, Blanche outmaneuvered them all, politically, diplomatically, and militarily. She negotiated peace treaties, crushed rebellions, and held France together with an iron will wrapped in silk gloves. When her son eventually took power, she didn't fade into the background. She ruled again as regent while he was away on crusade. History remembered her son as a saint. It nearly forgot the woman who made him one. Number 11. Christine de Pizan, 1364 to 1430. In a world where women were forbidden from universities, Christine de Pizan became medieval Europe's first professional female writer. Born in Venice, but raised in the French royal court, Christine turned to writing after her husband died young, leaving her with 3 children and no income. What she wrote would shake the foundations of medieval thought. Her most famous work, The Book of the City of Ladies, directly challenged centuries of misogynistic literature. She argued, in writing, in public, in 1405, that women were equal to men in intelligence, virtue, and capability. She was 500 years ahead of her time. History buried her under the weight of male writers it preferred to celebrate. But Christine de Pizan never stopped writing, and we never stopped needing her words. Number 10. Joan of Arc, 1412 to 1431. You know her name, but do you know her story, the real one? Jeanne d'Arc was a 17-year-old peasant girl from Lorraine who claimed divine visions instructed her to lead France against the English occupation during the 100 Years' War. Remarkably, against every convention of medieval society, military commanders listened to her. She led the French army to a stunning victory at Orléans in 1429. She personally stood on the front lines. She was wounded by an arrow and returned to battle the same day. Then she was captured, sold to the English, and put on trial for heresy. The charges? Wearing men's clothing, claiming to hear God's voice, being too powerful to ignore. She was burned at the stake at just 19 years old. 25 years later, a retrial declared her completely innocent. 5 centuries later, France made her a national saint. History tried to erase Joan of Arc and made her immortal instead. Number 9. Diane de Poitiers, 1499 to 1566. If you wanted power in 16th century France, you needed access to the king. Diane de Poitiers didn't just have access, she was the power behind the throne. As the official royal mistress of King Henri II, 20 years her junior, Diane wielded extraordinary political influence for over 2 decades. She controlled royal appointments, influenced foreign policy, and accumulated vast wealth and lands. She was cultured, brilliant, and calculating. She commissioned art, patronized architects, and transformed the Château d'Anay into one of the Renaissance's finest buildings. When Henri died in a jousting accident, his wife Catherine de Medici immediately stripped Diane of everything: jewels, chateau, and power. History remembered Catherine. It nearly forgot the woman who ran France while Catherine watched from the shadows. Number 8. Catherine de Medici, 1519 to 1589. Few women in history have been more deliberately misrepresented. An Italian princess who became Queen of France, then mother to 3 French kings, Catherine ruled as regent during one of the most violent periods in French history, the Wars of Religion between Catholics and Protestants. History handed her the blame for the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre of 1572, a night of violence that killed thousands of French Protestants. But historians today paint a far more complicated picture. Catherine was navigating a kingdom already tearing itself apart, manipulated by powerful noble factions, caught between religious extremists on both sides. She was called a poisoner, a schemer, a monster. She was, above all, a survivor, who kept France from complete collapse for 30 years. The men around her failed France. History blamed the woman. Number 7. Madame de Maintenon, 1635 to 1719. She was born in a prison. She died as the secret wife of the most powerful king in the world. Françoise d'Aubigné, known as Madame de Maintenon, rose from absolute poverty to become the morganatic wife of Louis XIV, the Sun King himself. But her greatest legacy wasn't her marriage, it was her school. In 1686, she founded the Maison Royale de Saint-Louis at Saint-Cyr, one of Europe's first schools dedicated to educating girls from poor noble families, free of charge. She believed, radically for her time, that educating women was essential to a civilized society. History focused on her relationship with Louis. It nearly forgot that she built an institution that educated women for over a century. Number 6. Emilie du Chatelet, 1706 to 1749. When Emilie du Chatelet wanted to enter a café in Paris to discuss science, she was turned away. Women were not permitted. She dressed as a man and walked back in. Emilie du Chatelet was the greatest female scientist of the 18th century, and one of the greatest scientists of any gender. She translated Isaac Newton's Principia Mathematica into French, a translation still used today. But she didn't just translate it. She corrected it, expanded it, and added her own original mathematical insights. She derived the formula for kinetic energy, a precursor to Einstein's famous equation. She died at 42, just days after giving birth. Her lover Voltaire, one of history's most celebrated thinkers, called her a great man whose only fault was being a woman. History celebrated Voltaire. It nearly forgot the woman who was smarter than him. Number 5. Olympe de Gouges, 1748 to 1793. In 1789, the French Revolution declared that all men were created free and equal. Olympe de Gouges noticed the word men. In 1791, she published the Declaration of the Rights of Woman and of the Female Citizen, a direct challenge to the revolutionary government that had promised liberty and delivered it only to half the population. She wrote, "Woman is born free and lives equal to man in her rights." The revolutionary government's response? They guillotined her. In 1793, Olympe de Gouges was executed, not for treason, but for being too radical, too outspoken, too dangerous. It took France another 151 years to give women the right to vote. History erased Olympe de Gouges so completely that most French school children didn't learn her name until the 21st century. Number 4. Germaine de Stael, 1766 to 1817. Napoleon Bonaparte was afraid of very few people. Germaine de Stael was one of them. The daughter of a Swiss banker and a French intellectual, de Stael became the most influential political thinker and writer in post-revolutionary Europe, and Napoleon's most persistent critic. Napoleon exiled her from Paris. She kept writing. He expanded her exile across France. She kept writing. He banned her books across the empire. Europe read them anyway. Her salon in Paris and later in Switzerland became the intellectual center of European liberalism. Writers, politicians, and philosophers crossed the continent to debate ideas with her. When Napoleon fell, her ideas about liberty, constitutional government, and freedom of the press helped shape the political order that replaced him. Napoleon ruled Europe with an army. De Stael challenged him with a pen and outlasted him. Number 3. George Sand, 1804 to 1876. Her real name was Amantine Lucille Aurore Dupin. She chose the name George Sand because she knew a woman's name on a book cover would mean fewer readers, less respect, and smaller royalties. She was right, and she refused to accept it. George Sand became one of the most prolific and celebrated writers of 19th century France, producing over 70 novels, 25 plays, and thousands of letters. She championed the rights of workers, women, and the poor at a time when literature was reserved for the aristocracy. She wore trousers in public. She smoked in cafes. She had relationships on her own terms. The French establishment was scandalized. Victor Hugo called her the greatest woman France has ever produced. History gave her a man's name. She used it to say things no man dared to. Number 2. Marie Curie, 1867 to 1934. She is the only person in history, man or woman, to win Nobel Prizes in 2 different sciences. Marie Curie won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1903 and the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1911. Born in Poland, she moved to Paris to study because Polish universities didn't accept women. At the Sorbonne, she studied in freezing lecture halls, often too poor to heat her apartment. She discovered polonium and radium. She pioneered the theory of radioactivity. She developed mobile X-ray units that saved the lives of over 1 million soldiers in World War I. When she was nominated for the French Academy of Sciences, she lost by 2 votes. The reason given by those who voted against her: she was a woman. Marie Curie was never admitted to the French Academy of Sciences, not once in her lifetime. She changed the world anyway. Number 1. Simone de Beauvoir, 1908 to 1986. In 1949, a French philosopher published a book that would change the way half the world understood itself. The Second Sex by Simone de Beauvoir opened with one of the most famous lines in modern literature. One is not born, but rather becomes a woman. In 2 volumes and 800 pages, de Beauvoir dismantled centuries of assumptions about femininity, biology, and the role of women in society. She argued that what the world called female nature was not natural at all. It was constructed, imposed, and enforced. The Vatican put the book on its list of prohibited texts. It sold 22,000 copies in its first week. De Beauvoir went on to become the mother of modern feminism, her ideas directly influencing the women's liberation movements of the 1960s and 70s across the world. History tried to define her only through her relationship with Jean-Paul Sartre. She had already defined herself on every page of every book she ever wrote. 12 women, 12 centuries, 1 nation. Each of them brilliant, brave, and inconvenient. Each of them written out, minimized, or forgotten by the history books that preferred simpler stories. But here is what history could never erase. The chateau they built still stand. The books they wrote are still read. The science they discovered still saves lives. The ideas they fought for still shape the world we live in. France did not make these women powerful. These women made France. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to La Belle Histoire, because France's greatest stories are just beginning. À bientôt.